So I'm a real practicing scientist. That's what I do for a living. That's what I get paid to do. And I love Jesus more than anything else in the world. Why do you, as such an educated person, believe in the physical resurrection of Jesus Christ? And what does that mean in your life?
It's one of those few things that, if true, changes everything, right? The human condition is undeniably limited. We live on a planet that spins in free space around a sun, and we get so many trips around, and then no one gets off the planet alive. And for me, I started reading the Gospels as a teenager after having had an experience of, I guess now I understand it to have been a kind of metaphysical angst. It was a kind of anxiety that I was experiencing about whether life had any ultimate meaning. And it made me wonder if there was something wrong with me, because I had questions popping into my head that I couldn't answer. And I, at some point, decided to crack the family Bible that was on the coffee table upstairs. I started with the Gospel of Matthew, and when I got to the end, I realized that it was if true, the gospel narrative changed everything. And at some point, I began to investigate the reliability of the biblical texts, and I found that there was tremendous historical support for the reliability. I remember first encountering the work of Josephus and finding that the basic story of the gospel was repeated in secular historical sources. And then I later examined the evidence for the resurrection itself, and there are three key facts. There's in fact a very powerful argument called the minimal facts argument that's been developed by scholars such as William Lane Craig and Gary Habermas. And as you look at those three key facts, the empty tomb, the appearances of Jesus, and this explosive origin of Christianity in the Mediterranean world, it's very difficult to explain all three of these without without positing an actual bodily resurrection. In fact, I think it's the best explanation of those facts and many others. For me, the testimony of James is incredibly important, because James was the half-brother of Jesus. We know from the Gospels that he originally rejected the claims of Jesus to be the Messiah and the Son of God, and something changed his mind very dramatically, such that he was later the leader of the Jewish Jerusalem church. And we know from secular sources, in particular from Josephus, that he was martyred for his faith in about 61 AD. So that's you start looking at that type of historical evidence, you have to ask, well, what changed James' mind? What changed Paul's mind? Why were these early disciples willingly accepting martyrdom, not for an abstract philosophy, but for something they said they saw and were in a position to know was false if on the basis of their own eyewitness testimony. So as I began to look at those historical sources, I found them very compelling, that the gospel story was not only a story that gave us hope, but one that was grounded in historical fact. And it takes a while to kind of sift through all that evidence, but it's pretty powerful, and it's convinced me. And obviously the encounter with Christ, I mean, I shouldn't say obviously, but for me, the person of Christ encountered in the pages of Scripture is just a very compelling person. He brings together two things that we humans very rarely bring together. In fact, this happens over and over, but we have right now tender-hearted in our political discourse, compassionate liberals and hard-headed conservatives, and Jesus seemed to bring together grace and truth. He brought them together in one person, and we tend to bifurcate. We accept one side or the other of a whole bunch of dichotomies, and so I found his person very unique. And then when I examined the claims of the narratives historically, I became convinced that what the Gospels were recording had actually happened, and so the human condition, I think, looks very different if you realize that there is life. There is every prospect of life eternal if you accept the gift that Christ is offering.